This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, rel-mar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Oh my goodness. Let me see, 18 days left till Christmas. I hope everybody's got their Christmas shopping done. I, as usual, have not. No, I wait till the very last minute, hoping there's going to be a sale at the Quickie Mart. You know, sometime shortly after midnight, so I can run home, wrap everything. I'm just kidding you. Yes, Laura and I have finished our Christmas shopping. And I still wonder why, oh why we do it. Yeah, Christmas is for kids. Let's face it, gang. So, you know, and by the way, if there's some way that each and every one of you can dig down a little deeper into your pockets or check out your food closets or cupboards to see if there's anything that you can put into a box, or maybe there's some blankets, some socks, some winter clothes that don't fit you or the children anymore that you would like to help out somebody with. At this time of year, many families are in desperate need. And it's cold out there, my friends. It's cold out there. So why don't we all band together and do whatever we can to help those less fortunate? And, of course, some of the best organizations are the Salvation Army, the United Way, and, of course, your local fire department. There you go. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, and all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And, of course, you can check out the programming on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, which we broadcast 24/7, 365 at www.xzbn.net. My guest this hour is Kristen Willeumier. She is a neuroscientist with extensive expertise on how diet, lifestyle, nutrition, and sports-related concussions impact brain health and longevity. Dr. Kristen served as the Director of Neuroimaging Research for the Men Clinics from 2009 to 2016, exploring the role of the brain SPECT imaging in clinical practice. She has authored or co-authored 52 scientific publications in peer-reviewed journals. Areas of published research include traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress disorder, autism, biomarkers of suicide, obesity, gender difference in brain function, clinical outcomes, and rehabilitation. Together with colleagues, she led a clinical research trial investigating the long-term effects of repetitive subconcussive impacts in NFL players. Subsequent work focused on therapeutic approaches to rehabilitation brain function in athletes. Her website is www.drwilleumier.com. And Dr. Kristen, welcome to the X-Zone.
Rob, it is such a pleasure to be here with you this evening.
Well, it's our great pleasure having you with us. The work that you and your colleagues do, oh my goodness, is so fascinating. And, you know, I really don't believe there are a lot of people who actually understand what a neuroscientist does. So can you explain to our audience what a neuroscientist is?
Oh, that's the $1,000,000 question. I think before I went into this field, I didn't know what one was either. So what I did so I've been a neuroscientist for the past 20 years of my career. The first 10 years, I worked on studying how neurons die in Parkinson's disease. So I did work in a laboratory setting, and I studied a gene that was found to be mutated in the young onset form of Parkinson's disease called Parkin. And essentially what I did, so part of my work was done over at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center here in Los Angeles. I worked in the Department of Neurogenetics, and I worked in the lab creating constructs so we can actually take a piece of DNA and create the mutations that we see in some of these degenerative diseases. So I'd create the constructs over at Cedars, and then I would bring them over to UCLA where I did my graduate training and take that construct and put it into living neurons. So in order to do that, we essentially will take the brains of rats or mice, dissect a very specific region of the brain that we want to look at. Say, for example, hippocampal neurons. So those are neurons that are involved in memory, and we can grow them in a culture dish. And I would take that genetic construct, put it into these neurons, and we actually have a way to have the neurons that have the diseased construct fluoresce. So when I look at it under a microscope, I can detect, okay, these are the healthy neurons versus the ones that have the diseased gene that might make malfunctioning protein. And then you spend lots of hours and days and weeks and months trying to determine how the signaling patterns between the neurons goes awry. And that's the sort of tedious work of a neuroscientist. I shouldn't say tedious because it's really fascinating to really understand why neurons die and what keeps them alive. So I spent 10 years of my career really doing that laboratory work.
How far has
the question?
How far has neuroscience come in the last 10 years?
Oh my God, we've made extraordinary advances in the last 2 decades. I mean, given the fact that we've got progression of these degenerative diseases, we're starting to really understand how these diseases are impacting brain function. If I take that a step further, when I think about applications like machine learning, so the second part of my career was spent more in a clinical setting working with patients, and I put together a large neuroimaging database which had over 125,000 brain imaging scans. And we're able to take the power of the big data and ask really interesting questions like, how do we differentiate 2 disorders, such as post-traumatic stress disorder and traumatic brain injury? 2 disorders which might have very similar clinical symptoms but are treated very differently. And through machine learning applications, we're able to take all of this data and find really specific neuroimaging biomarkers to distinguish them. So that's just one of the incredible advances that we're making.
How has the MRI helped with neuroscience?
Well, MRI allows us to look at the structure of the brain. So when we do MRI images on patients, we could actually look at structure or function depending on what type that you get, but they allow us to see structural changes in brain function. And what's really fascinating about MRI studies is we're able to discern, can we increase gray matter volume in the brain? So one of the aspects of neuroscience research that I really love is showing how diet and lifestyle factors can improve or enhance brain function. And we've been able to show using structural neuroimaging techniques that making simple dietary changes such as increasing the amount of fish consumption that we take, so increasing our omega-3 fatty acids, can actually increase brain volume. And these are the kind of things that we can see using structural brain imaging techniques like MRI.
Right. People seem to be living longer these days. How is this going to affect the long-term brain health?
Oh, you bring up such a great point. So, the average lifespan of somebody living in the United States is now 78 years of age. Mm-hmm. And believe it or not, it's estimated that 1 out of every 3 babies born today are expected to live to 100 years of age.
My gosh.
So it's crazy, right? So given this previously unthinkable milestone, we have to think about protecting the long-term health of our brains. So interestingly, most people don't know that normal cognitive aging begins to take place in our 30s. And were you aware of that?
No, I wasn't.
So the reason why this is important is understanding the importance of taking care of our brains when we're young is really important to the long-term health of our brain. Something that I like to share with people, and this is really what I've gleaned from doing neuroimaging work, is that diseases like Parkinson's or Alzheimer's disease can actually start in the brain 2 decades before you have a symptom. So if you think Alzheimer's disease typically starts at 65 years of age, to think at 45 years of age, you're starting to develop the abnormally folded proteins that are in the brain. You're still going through this asymptomatic phase. You're not consciously aware that this is happening, that by the time you actually get the disease, it's a lot harder to slow down or reverse it. So what I like to share with people is that it's really important to start dietary and lifestyle changes very early on when you're young to really slow down brain aging and to help us live into our 80s, 90s, and 100s with healthy brain function.
Somehow I don't think McDonald's, Arby's, Wendy's, and all the other fast food chains that are out there fall into a proper dietary classification.
No, but I will say I applaud their efforts at attempting to change their menus and offering healthier selections and salads and cleaner foods, because I think we're all acknowledging that having excess saturated fats and trans fats in our diet and excess sugar is really promoting inflammation in our brain and body. And if we think about it, inflammation is the foundational element to all diseases in the body.
So I guess the day of going to McDonald's, buying a Big Mac, and running it over with your card to grease the undercarriage of your car are soon to be over, right?
Well, I don't know if they continue to make healthier choices. If we can get grass-fed, beef that are free of hormones and antibiotics. I mean, I'm really open to people making changes. And, the corporations are being forced to do this because I think we're just becoming a more health-conscious society. Wouldn't you agree?
I certainly do, Doctor, and you and I have to take our first commercial break. Please stand by. Thank you so much for joining us. Exonation, our guest this hour is Dr. Kristen Willeumier. Kristen Willeumier, I should say. And if you'd like to find out more about the good doctor, www.drwilleumier.com. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Right here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, the Mutual Broadcast Network. Let me see, what else can I throw in there to help somebody out? Oh, here we go, the Digital Satellite Network and the Digital Broadcast Network, and of course our good friends at iHeartRadio. Send me your emails, xzone at xzoneradiotv.com, and to one and all, Merry Christmas.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
This is the X Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Welcome back, everyone. Dr. Kristen Willeumier is our very special guest. She is a neuroscientist, and her website is drwilleumier.com. Tell me, doctor, it's great that we're living to the older ages that we are, but are our bodies made to live that long? Or does the body start dying before the brain does?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Well, I think it's all in how you approach your lifestyle. So, our brain matures and is in this beautiful growth phase till about the age of 25. Then when we hit 25, as I was mentioning in the previous segment, we start to get this loss of neurons that happen just continually over time. I think if we're really smart and proactive in our approach to being healthy, eating clean foods, getting daily exercise, we can really help to slow down this degenerative process. So I think, again, it's about taking a proactive approach because there are healthy centenarians. I mean, haven't you seen that, people that are running marathons in their 80s and, we are living longer and having better quality of life. So I think it's very possible to slow down this aging process if we're very proactive in our approach.
But isn't the longer lifetime going to be one heck of a draw on the economy of society?
It is an extraordinary burden. So when I think about Alzheimer's disease, for example, currently 5.1 million Americans are living with the disease, but it's expected to triple by 2050. So, and then we have dementias. Dementia is more of an umbrella term that really represents a cognitive decline. And they're saying that we have 50 million people worldwide that have dementia. So because we have these progressive neurodegenerative disorders that are in our population, and they're sucking our economy dry. So in 2015, the United States spent $818 billion on treating Alzheimer's disease.
Gosh.
And in 2018, it's expected to reach $1 trillion. So I think we have to really take this thoughtful approach. Again, what can we do at our younger ages when we're healthy and we have the ability to make choices to help support and preserve our brain health instead of waiting until we're 60 or 65 when we find out that we have these diseases of aging? It becomes much harder, again, to reverse or slow down the progression. So, based on the work that I've done and all the patients that I've worked with, either these early interventions can really change the trajectory of your life.
How close are we to finding a cure for Alzheimer's?
Ooh, you asked the million-dollar question. So right now, we're not really at a point where there's a cure, and the medications aren't very helpful. I mean, they help alleviate symptoms, but they really aren't helping to slow down the disease progression. So I think when we're thinking in terms of a cure, it's more about taking a proactive approach to supporting your brain function instead of, what can we do to cure it? We're still figuring out ways that we can accurately diagnose it while people are living instead of at autopsy. And this is where looking at biomarkers in the cerebrospinal fluid to help us understand, the accumulation of these misfolded proteins. Are they there? And, what's the severity level? And I will tell you, and I think this is something your audience would be really intrigued to know about, there is a new retinal imaging modality that's going through clinical trials, but we're actually able to see the plaques that form during Alzheimer's disease in the eye. So can you imagine, say, in the next 5 to 10 years, you could go to your ophthalmologist, have a 20-minute eye test, and be able to see if you have the formation of these plaques in the brain. So I think, the testing to be able to show that we have it at earlier stages will help people to then go ahead and make the lifestyle changes that can help protect your brain health.
That's a rather unique situation because somebody goes to the ophthalmologist, they take the scan, they're diagnosed with, the onset of Alzheimer's, and then what do? How does this affect their psyche, knowing that they have the disease, but there's no cure?
I think you bring up a great point. So what we might be able to say is noticing that there's the presence of these misfolded proteins. So I think that's the part where we say, okay, we're noticing they're here. And then you look at, do I have a family history of it? Is there a genetic history of it in my family? Again, when we think about Alzheimer's disease, we want to take that proactive, preventative stance. And I think that's where the testing can be helpful. I think the same thing goes with genetic testing. People are very afraid to find out, do I have a mutation in a gene that's going to give me a degenerative disease? So it is true when you think about the impact of that on the psyche. Some people might say, I'd rather not know.
And I can understand that. I can understand that. I can appreciate that. But I am amazed at the work that you as a neuroscientist and the fellow researchers on how hard you are trying your very best to make a positive difference in the lives of people. So thank you for the great work that you do.
Oh, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate your kind words.
Let me ask you this. Is Alzheimer's, is it passed down throughout the family? Is it a genetic disease?
So there are genes that have been found to be mutated that cause Alzheimer's disease, particularly in the ApoE4 allele. But again, a majority of the cases tend to be sporadic, but just occur naturally, which is why we want to really highlight, if you start prevention early, if you start doing the changes in your diet and lifestyle in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, you could really stave off the onset of the disorder. So instead of getting it 65, maybe you wouldn't get it until 85.
Well, that's pretty good.
I think that's the way we have to change our thinking around these degenerative processes happening in the brain.
Okay, so how do we start changing? How do we start looking at life in a way that would be productive to us in a positive manner, yet not altering our lifestyle totally? For example, let's take diet. What would you suggest a proactive diet would be?
Well, I think the first step is, in our clinic, we would always say you cannot change what you don't measure. So the important thing is look at your body mass index and see if you're overweight.
Oh, I am.
If you are overweight or obese, and a majority of people are, unfortunately, and that's where it's really important to just find that out. So the first step is So you look at your body mass index, and then you go and get your blood glucose levels tested. So you see, are you pre-diabetic or diabetic? And you can also look at hemoglobin A1C levels. So hemoglobin A1C allows you to measure the amount of glucose that's been in your blood for the last 2 to 3 months. So getting some markers to just say, okay, if we're overweight or obese or diabetic or pre-diabetic, we need to change the diet. So if we need to change the diet, what I typically recommend to patients, and I used to teach a weight loss group at our clinic. I taught it for 7 years straight because we realized obesity impacts brain function. Mm-hmm. We showed through our brain imaging work that can actually help reduce perfusion or blood flow in the frontal lobes, the area of the brain that's involved in higher level thinking and decision making. So we really thought, okay, we have to teach people how to eat. So where do you start? Number one, I tell people to try and eat living foods that have a high enzyme content, preferably raw, uncooked foods that are rich in antioxidants. So think organic fruits and vegetables, think whole grains like oats and quinoa, or seeds and nuts. Think about the leafy greens that are rich sources of oxygen. These are really good for your brain health. Think dark green leafy vegetables like kale, broccoli, and spinach. So you start with just increasing fruit and vegetable consumption. 2, you start to drink more water. So most people don't realize that they're walking around dehydrated. Mm-hmm. The body's 75% water, but the brain's 85% water. Wow. So when we're dehydrated, the brain's the first organ to feel it. And that's where we get symptoms like headaches, fatigue, anxiety. So we go there. Next, we start to clean up the foods that we're eating. So you want to reduce foods that are allergenic. For example, dairy, soy, corn, wheat, and eggs. I know all the good stuff, right? So we want to reduce the foods that can cause an sort of allergic response in our body. We'd want to reduce consumption of refined sugars, like all the good cookies and cakes and candy, because that weakens the immune system, depletes the body of minerals, and leads to diabetes and weight gain. So, we want to minimize things that are harmful to the brain. Alcohol. So alcohol is not a health food. Many times when we would work with patients, if we work with somebody who is healthy, mm-hmm. 1 to 2 glasses per week is fine. But if you're overweight, if you have any sort of disease process in the body, or you want to optimize brain function, we would always recommend refraining from alcohol until you get to a healthy body mass index. You're not diabetic. We get all of your lab values in a healthy range. So these are just simple things that you can do. You want to limit the consumption of red meat. A lot of times the meats contain high amounts of fats and cholesterol and pesticides and hormones. So just a really clean diet. Think the Mediterranean diet. That's very effective at helping people to stay lean. You get the healthy nutrients that you want. You don't have the overconsumption of foods that can be harmful to your brain and body health. And, by following these recommendations, you can really make a tremendous difference in your brain health.
Doctor, please stand by. You and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Exonation, our guest this hour is Dr. Kristen, I don't know why I say Christian. Steve Benedict's daughter is Christian. There you go. Kristen Willeumier is her name, and her website is www.drwilleumier.com. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and here's a programming note for one and all. From the 24th of December at 8 a.m. until the following Christmas is 25th, until noon at the 26th, we will be playing Christmas music. Isn't that strange? Playing Christmas music during the Christmas holidays. That's a programming note, and that's going to be on all the XZBN channel networks. This is the X Zone, and we will be back on the other side of this break as we continue from our broadcast center right here in beautiful Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
And welcome back, one and all. Dr. Kristen Willeumier is our special guest. What kind of dog do you have, Doctor?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Don't be.
Is Oscar, my rescue. He's an Australian cattle dog, and I sometimes think of him as my chief security officer, providing protection.
Never apologize for a dog, because one of the jobs I was contracted to do through rel-mar was as the Director of Communications for the SPCA. And I love dogs, and my hat and my heart always goes out to the men and women who do so much at the rescue centers as well as the SPCA. Right here at home, we have 3 little girls. You know, our children are married and they have grandchildren, so it kind of got lonely here at the home front. So Laura and I went out and we adopted 3 little girls.
Oh, bless your heart. I love you for that.
Oh, thank you. Let me ask you a question, Doctor. During the course of your research into Alzheimer's, is there any place on this planet that is Alzheimer's free?
That's such a good question you bring up. Yes, there are areas called blue zones, which are we consider those areas where people are living into their hundreds, living very healthy, and we're doing research to really understand what is it about these areas that helps people live these long, healthy lives, sort of free of degenerative disorders. One of them happens to be right here in California, where I live, near Loma Linda University. So researchers are really looking at the effects of diet and lifestyle factors and how they're contributing to support this long, healthy, extended brain function.
Is there any connection between the increase of Alzheimer's and the increase of microwaves and other systems that are used for cell phone communications, broadcasting?
Oh, that's another great point that you bring up. So I was really fascinated in understanding the impact of these waves on brain function. And there's a sort of wealth of information in the research literature starting to show the effects of cell phones on brain tumor formation or tumor formation in the body. So I'm not quite sure of the impact as it relates to Alzheimer's disease, but I'm very aware that, having these wireless communication devices and keeping them too close to our body, especially our brain, is a health risk. And that's why when I work with patients, I teach them, for example, on cell phones, use the speakerphone, try not to put it up to your head, try not to keep it in your pocket, or don't put a laptop on your body. Yeah. Because it does have the impacts. And I'm sure you've done some wonderful shows on this.
Yes, we have. And when you were talking about you didn't know what one of the factors are concerning the blue zones, my producer, Craig, in my headphone says that's because they don't watch CNN. Nice, Craig. Really nice.
Good point.
Let's talk about...
It's true. We want to minimize exposure to technology and negative news.
So there you go. Let's talk about the work you're doing with sports injuries when it comes to the brain, because sport injuries, concussions are becoming... It's no longer kept in the closet. It's coming out, and there's been a lot of good publicity on the effects of concussions in not only the NFL, the CFL, but other sports. How far, what can you tell us about that aspect of neuroscience?
Well, I'll tell you, and this is really personal to me. Back in 2009 is when we started our neuroimaging study in professional athletes. And what we did was we looked at the effect of repetitive subconcussive impacts on the long-term brain function of these players. And we happened to recruit 100 players who were either active or retired. They were as young as 25 and as old as 85. And we just wanted to ask the question, does playing this sport cause brain damage? And back in 2009, nobody had done a functional imaging study looking at it. Here we are, 2017, and it's, now we have the concussion epidemic. So, what our research clearly demonstrated is that playing these collision-based sports cause global perfusion deficits in the brain. And really, in layman's terms, that means, when we see low blood flow throughout the brain, ultimately structural changes are going to follow. And this is why we're seeing the presence of this degenerative disease process called chronic traumatic encephalopathy in these players. So what was fascinating about the work we did, and this is why I get so excited about teaching people about protecting your brain health, is we took a subset of those players. We offered all of them the opportunity to go on a brain rehabilitation program, which was, again, I taught a weight loss group for those who were overweight or obese, to really just educate them on how to eat clean foods and exercise and take care of their brain. But we gave simple nutrient recommendations. I'm talking brain-directed multivitamin, omega-3 fatty acids, and a brain support nutrient. And we found these very simple interventions could rehabilitate brain function in these players. We were also able to use more advanced technologies like neurofeedback, which essentially helps neurons to communicate with one another in the brain, so helping to restore the neuronal connectivity, and advances like hyperbaric oxygen therapy, which can actually regrow blood vessels in the brain. Wow. So it was the first time I had seen and was excited to see that we had the capability of helping to reverse and restore brain function. And these athletes who had I'm sorry to say, their brains just looked destroyed. And so there's really something positive that's coming out of this if we want to kind of take that approach. But, the issue of chronic traumatic encephalopathy, now, the work of Dr. Ann McKee, the neuropathologist over at Boston University, she's the director of the Chronic Traumatic Encephalopathy Brain Bank. Currently, she has out of 111 NFL players, 110 tested positive for CTE.
Oh my gosh.
We're seeing it in athletes as young as 17 years of age. So what I like to teach people is that essentially CTE is like getting an Alzheimer's disease. We're seeing it in the brains of these 40-year-olds instead of, when we would typically see a degenerative disease in the population, which is more around the age of 65. So I feel like it's an eye-opener, and it's really important because we've got all of our children who are playing these collision-based sports, whether it's football or rugby or ice hockey. We're seeing it happen across multiple sports. And just because you play a collision-based sport doesn't mean that you're going to get CT or you're going to have it. I mean, you really have to have these repetitive hits over time. We're talking 5, 10, 15 years. But, understanding and studying this particular form of degenerative brain disease, I think is really going to help to illuminate new areas of research in support of early detection of disorders like CTE and Alzheimer's, as well as brain rehabilitation strategies.
You were mentioning before that there are methods to restore the connectivity of the neurons. Would this technique also be applied or applicable, or has it been applied to people with MS?
Oh, that's a very good question. I don't know, MS. One thing that really is helpful for people who have MS is going on an anti-inflammatory diet, believe it or not, some of the patients that I've worked with. But the techniques that can help restore the neural connectivity, I would say neurofeedback, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with what that is.
No, I'm not. Could you explain it to us?
Yeah. So what I love about neurofeedback, what you initially do before you do that therapy is we do something called a quantitative EEG, where we can put a cap on your head and measure the brainwave activity. And so the leads that go along your brain are essentially measuring the activity along the scalp, but it also informs what's going on deeper in the brain. And then we create these beautiful maps that are highly individualized, very unique to your brain function. Then somebody who's trained in neurofeedback can take your results. They will look to see how your results are different from a normative database. So how different are you from, healthy controls?
Right.
And they can take the leads, place them very specifically along your scalp, whether it's frontal lobes, temporal lobes, and work to retrain. We literally get the brain to retrain itself and establish these connections. And we have this wonderful phrase in neuroscience where we say neurons that fire together wire together. So we like to think of neurofeedback as a way of going to the gym for your brain. So if we now want to apply that to MS, I think, again, we would want to say, what is that unique individual's deficits, and could we use neurofeedback to help support, optimize their brain function to healthier levels? So I would say the short answer is yes.
Can neurofeedback also be used to grow back nerve systems? For example, if somebody has had an injury that has severed a part of the spinal cord or nerve, would this process be able to help grow that nerve back and once again bring forth the use of that nerve, making people walk again who have had, for example, the injuries where they can't walk because of the nerve damage?
Sure. I think all of it can help. So neurofeedback can help. Doing different kinds of physical therapy can help. So what's interesting about physical therapy, when you talk about somebody who's got severed or damaged neurons, people need to understand that movement of the body helps to strengthen connections in the brain. And this is where I get so excited about exercise and teaching people to change up their exercise, whether it's running or cross-training or dancing, or, for example, somebody who has Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's disease, you lose neurons in the substantia nigra. That's an area of the brain.
All right,
which
doctor,
is
I hate to do this.
involved
I hate to do this to you because
commercial.
I love what you're talking about. It's very close to me.
I'll hold the thought.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Exonation, our guest this hour is Dr. Kristen Willeumier, www.drwilleumier.com. And the good doctor and I return as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to send me an email, once again, my email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Whatever you do, do not go away because we're in touch with Santa Claus. So if you go away, guess what happens Christmas Eve? He doesn't go to your house. We'll be back. Don't go away.
The Earth is under ever-increasing pressure from untenable lifestyles and growing populations. Yet, viable answers seem in short supply. What if I told you there's an ancient form that can empower you to take charge of your life? What if your entire family could be enfolded and supported by life itself, finding safe passage through challenging times? I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Art School with great news, an upcoming series of leading-edge online affordable classes based in an ancient form of shamanism easily learned and used by your entire family. Galactic Shamanism, Art of the Ancients, Key to Tomorrow are a series of online adult and children's lessons instructing your entire family on natural law, how to cooperate with and be supported by the powers of the universe. Visit findyourpathhome.com to find these unique and powerful classes.
This is the X Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
And welcome back, everyone. Dr. Kristen Willeumier is our very special guest, www.drwilleumier.com. And I must tell you a little bit of history on why neuroscience is one of the most important and most interesting topics to me. I was part of the International Institute for Spinal Regeneration here in Hamilton. The senior researcher of the project was Dr. Michael Rathbone, who is a professor and one of the senior neurologists within the Hamilton Health Sciences. And yeah, and you know, having done work with the SPCA, and you know, if I wanted to raise thousands of dollars to help the SPCA, all I had to do was go down to a TV station and hold a puppy in my hand, and by the time I would get back to the office, thousands and thousands of dollars would have been donated. Mm-hmm. Yet when it came to raising money, research into helping people regain their walking ability again, or anything to do with neuroscience, it was next to impossible.
Yeah, you have to touch on the hearts. The people that tend to donate are the ones who either are afflicted with the disorder or have family or friends that are afflicted. So it really is interesting. And I can understand, animals touch our hearts. Animals represent unconditional love. And, we're so connected to them. So it's true. It's so easy to give to that. But you're right. We have to create special days like a breast cancer awareness day in order to raise money for breast cancer, an Alzheimer's awareness day. And it's, we really do need the funds for the research because we're making some extraordinary advances, and we don't want to have to wait until somebody's injured to be able to help make these groundbreaking advances.
How can we help the youth of today and the youth of tomorrow to understand the importance of the changes that you and I have been talking about over the past hour?
Well, with respect to living a longer, healthy lifestyle, it's funny. The youth of today, this is a very different culture than when I grew up. So I will disclose that I am 45 years of age.
Oh, you're still a baby. You're still a baby.
I do feel like I'm very young, but, with 20 years of neuroscience training under my belt, I realized I did not grow up with technology the way kids today are. So you brought up such a great point where we've got 4 and 5-year-olds who are holding cell phones, right? So there's all of this exposure to EMFs that I didn't have growing up. I never grew up watching television. I was actually not allowed. My mom let me watch like 1 hour a week of television. I had to go out and play sports and be active. So we have all of these kids who are on the computer, who are using social media to connect with people. So and then if I just step back and go, look at our changing environment. We now have GMOs that are part of our food source. And so we've got these GMOs that are very harmful to our brain and body health that we didn't have 20, 30 years ago. So really there are so many changes. And I think, if I were to look at, the thing that I would be most concerned about, it's the EMF exposure and the exposure to cell phones and radiation that we have to be really mindful of. In addition to just being smart, staying lean. I mean, the one thing I would teach patients that I work with or teaching these weight loss groups, staying lean and having a lean body frame is so important in your overall brain and body health because inflammation, again, is the trigger for all of these diseases. Learning how to eat healthy and make healthy food choices. It sounds so simple, but it's not. People go out to fast food restaurants, they eat foods out of a box. So just if you're a parent, model great behaviors for your kids because your kids will do what you do. Limit the caffeine consumption, the 5-hour energies and Red Bull. I mean, now we're sort of an overstimulated culture with the social media and the Twitter and the Facebook and everybody's on TV and everybody's drinking too much caffeine. All of this excess stimulation is not helpful for optimal brain function. Finding time to reduce your stress and sit in peace and quiet, learning to calm your system down, learning techniques like meditation. People have no idea meditation can literally change your brain function. It helps improve frontal lobe functions. You're able to actually focus and get things done. We've done brain imaging studies on this. So it's lifestyle changes and get your sleep. I don't think people realize how important sleep is to restorative health.
Just listening to you, it's a wonder I've lived this long because everything that you're saying, should do. I get 3-4 hours sleep a night. I don't know how many cups of coffee.
Gosh.
Yeah, because, I do a morning show. So I have to get to the studio at 5 o'clock in the morning to go on air from 7 until 9. And then everything else that I do around here, I get home and I am keyed up. So if I get home, let's say at 1 o'clock, what I do now is I walk into the living room, I get myself a big glass of water, I shut off all the lights, and I just sit in the silence, in the darkness, and I just let my brain empty out.
I love it. That's a great step. And the one thing that I don't think people realize, and this is maybe a pearl of wisdom that I'd like to impart to your community of listeners, working in the field of functional brain imaging and having seen thousands of brain images over time. We tried to create just a healthy database of healthy people. It took us 10 years to find 100 healthy individuals that had beautiful perfusion to the brain. So I've been on the side as a scientist to see a lot of our bad habits that we do, they're impacting blood flow to the brain. And if we're having decreases in blood flow to very critical areas of the brain, and we don't do anything to change our habits, we're going to lose those neurons. So this is why I'm so just proactive, and I get so excited about teaching people, change your habits today. One small change today that you do consistently over time can completely change your brain health. So let me just give you one quick example.
Oh, please.
When I'm helping people to get healthy, drinking soda. If you stop drinking soda, a lot of people drink a soda a day. That's just normal to many people. That can take 20 pounds off of your body in the course of a year and help. Again, we're reducing that processed sugar that's in your brain and body, and it can have a tremendous impact on your health. So what I like to tell people is do one thing, whether it's take a brain nutrient, drink a green juice, get the right amount of water in each day, just one thing, and do it consistently over time. And that can be enough to make a significant change in your brain function.
When you were talking about the omega-3s, are you talking about ingesting the omega-3 by eating fish, or do the supplements also work?
You can do both. So I prefer people to get omega-3 fatty acids from natural sources, which is why eating fish 2 to 3 times per week, so think wild salmon or cold water fish like mackerel, or sardines, tuna, or trout. But for those who don't eat fish or who are vegan or who are concerned about mercury contamination, I would highly advise supplementing with omega-3 fatty acids to support your brain health and longevity, just because every living cell in the body requires the omega-3 fatty acids. So we need this for our brain health. And working in a clinical setting where we actually test people's omega-3 fatty acid levels, I would say 95% of the people were deficient in omega-3 fatty acids. And until they supplemented, we recommend 1 to 2 grams per day if you're healthy, but you might need as many as 3 to 5 grams per day if you've had a history of traumatic brain injury or perhaps mental health issues that you're working on correcting. So it really is an essential component to a brain healthy lifestyle.
Truly fascinating. Doctor, as always, whenever I have an interesting guest on like you that is making a positive difference in the world that we live in, thanks to you and the other researchers and other members of the medical community who, in my opinion, do not get the accolades and the laurels that you people deserve. Thank you so much for everything you do. And I have to ask you, what are your final words of wisdom for the listening audience of the X-Zone Nation tonight?
My final words of wisdom are love your brain. I know many of us don't look at the organ that regulates our thoughts, behaviors, and moods. So I would say do something kind for yourself to nourish your brain, whether it's taking omega-3 fatty acids, consuming a green drink, or reducing your cup of coffee. Take 1 cup of coffee out per day. It will reap rewards for you later on. And I thank you so much for the honor and pleasure of being able to share information with you and your audience this evening.
Doctor, the honor and pleasure has been all ours. And Craig, the producer, asked me to ask you, does decaffeinated coffee have the same effect on the brain that caffeinated coffee does?
Oh, decaf versus caffeinated. So when I think about the caffeine, I would say I prefer decaffeinated. I think about 2 things. So the caffeine is going to constrict blood flow, and we don't want to constrict blood flow to the brain. So that's one of the reasons not to drink caffeinated drinks, whether it's coffee or soda. And we think about the effects on the adrenal gland. So every time you drink something that's caffeinated, you get this release of cortisol, and the elevated cortisol levels over time can wreak havoc on brain function. So I would say to your producer, the decaffeinated coffee is best.
Doctor, let our listeners know how they can find out more about you, and please give out your website.
Thank you so much. So if you would like to contact me or ask me any questions, you can reach me at www.drwilleumier.com. It's DrWilleumier. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, Rob.
Doctor, thank you so much. And to you and yours, the very best of the holidays and nothing but a fantastic, super love-filled and spiritual new year.
Oh, and I wish the same to you as well. Thank you so much, and blessings to you.
Blessings to you too, Doctor. Exonation Dr. Kristen Willeumier has been our very special guest. What a great lady. Follow her advice. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news at 6.5 minutes past the top of the hour as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.